what we're missing. Dominic, to remind us that we are recording to the cloud, and welcome to Solve, a SaaSOps live virtual event. This is actually SolveTank episode 16. We have turned 16. We could do some more exciting things in different countries based on our age now. But in the last year and a bit, we have had 15 SaaS companies come on. And then we, as my esteemed collection of SaaSOps professionals, we review the product, we get a demo, we review it and give our opinion. And today, a lot of us are Google Workspace admins. And obviously, we know that we need to have good tools to fully utilize all of the features and functions of the Google API, which you can do in GAM. But a lot of us like a web UI, simple point of click, and allow us to automate a lot of tasks. And we are very happy today to have Cloudm join us. And they say that they are one platform to get the most out of Microsoft 365, Google Workspace, and other SaaS. So thanks, Steve, Harry, and Dwayne for joining us today. And pass you over to Steve to fire through and give us a quick introduction and demo.
Well, thank you very much, Colin. Firstly, thank you for allowing us to join you today as you turn Sweet 16. We're Cloudm. We are a Microsoft Gold partner and a Google Premier partner. We've been quite prevalent in the data migration world for a number of years, migrating to Google and to Microsoft 365. I believe there'll be some organizations on this call just by the law of averages. We've probably gone through our migration software at some point. We've expanded our offering, moving into the SaaSOps world, and developed what we call now the Cloudm platform. And within there, we have a management tool, an administrative tool, to help kind of backfill functionality that, if we're all Google admins, we kind of know might be missing in the Google world. We've also found some new interesting ways to blend our traditional technologies into the new technologies, to expand that into the management platform, and also our new archive tool, which can allow organizations to move users and data outside of the productivity suite up into cloud storage buckets and restore that data back into live accounts as and when needed. We also added some great automation around the moving of data and users in our onboarding and offboarding pieces, which Dwayne will touch on in a moment, which allows organizations to be clever and recycle their licenses. As Google admins and those of us who've worked in for partners, resellers, etc., looking at you, Paul, know that kind of the cloud's dirty little secret can be that license creep. Users leave the organization. What the hell can we need to maintain their data? It's 2021. Why are we deleting data? So we've tried to find solutions to plug those holes. And I know no one wants to listen to me too much. So Dwayne, if I could hand it over to you for a nice little high-level demo, and then we'll be able to field some questions afterwards.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that, buddy.
Thank you.
Yep. Let me get my screen shared out here, and then we'll just go ahead and dive right in. So, folks, let me just make sure everyone can see my screen, first of all. Good. All right. So I'm going to take you through the Managed Console. Feel free to dive in if you've got some questions, comments. I actually prefer more of an interactive demo. So if you have some questions, you want to stop me along the way, that's fine. So what we're talking about, just kind of jumping off what Steve mentioned, we're talking about being able to manage your users, add some automation to onboarding, offboarding, get those workflows in place. We can certainly help you with that. Ultimately, we're talking about reducing time. We're talking about shoring up your processes. All that we can do through our Managed Console. So the first thing, to add the console, it is actually a Workspace app. So you're going to go out to the marketplace. You're going to search for Cloudm. You'll see our apps come in there. You'll be able to add it. Anyone with super admin permission level will be able to add that. Once you get logged in, you're going to come into this home screen. Home screen is kind of where we inject some reporting. We're actually syncing with your admin console, your Workspace there. We're giving you some domain insights, any warning items, anything that you need to be aware of, things that you may need to take action on, users that are being scheduled for offboarding, user accounts that haven't logged in over 30 days. That's kind of important. We're trying to prevent burning additional licenses and things like that. So if you've got some users that have been out there and maybe they're no longer with the company, we can go ahead and get those licenses removed for you. We've got some healthy items. All this is dynamic. So basically, whatever's happening in your domain, we're going to give you that reporting based on that. Some counts, login information, some activity from where folks are logging in from. How do we get the users into the managed console? Well, like I mentioned, we actually sync with your admin console. There's no hierarchy, there's no precedent. Whatever shows up in the admin console is going to sync and manage, vice versa. Syncs run on different schedules. Most user data is syncing pretty much right away. Other things sync 24 hours, other things sync 48 hours, just depends. It's all done through APIs. That sounds like you all are pretty familiar with. But the idea is you can actually use this as a user directory. It can definitely be used as an admin tool as well. If I jump into a user account, I can see profile data that we're actually syncing from the admin console. So I can see which groups they're a member of, any contacts that they have, company contacts, things like that. We can even bring in custom data. So if you're using, like folks are using custom attributes, did a call with a pretty big company earlier this week. And they said that they were using tons of custom attributes for very specific needs. So we're trying to work with them on how we can actually leverage some of that data and use it and manage. Maybe some things that we can cut out as well.
Hey, Dwayne.
But yeah, go for it, Brian. Yep.
A quick question about those groups. Are those groups singular to Cloudm, or are those groups being imported from somewhere?
Good question. So we're actually pulling groups in directly from the admin console. Some folks may already have hundreds of groups. You can actually just bring them in through the sync. They come in automatically, so you'll be able to see that. Same thing for your OUs. You can see your top level OU, kind of your default OU, domain, if you will, and then your actual organizational structure. Now, one thing that we do unique and manage, Brian, is we actually have another group that we call Smart Teams. Smart Teams are actually dynamic groups that are powered by a search query. The idea is that Smart Teams become kind of the foundation of our automation. It's really nice because you can actually put folks into a smart team and you're not messing up your existing structure, so to speak. So you're not affecting OUs because, as we know, users live in one OU. So it's basically powered by a query. So we have this search bar at the top. Search bar has IntelliSense. So what I mean by that is you can actually begin to search out certain fields. I'm actually searching for tags. That's another unique element in Manage. I search for contractors. So all these users are actually tagged as contractors. So if I have those inside my environment, maybe I don't have an OU for contractors, but now I can actually tag these users. What can I do with that? Well, I can actually perform actions based on that. Maybe I create a smart team. Again, foundation to my automation. I give this smart team a name, I give it an email address, and then I can come in and from there I can perform my onboarding workflow, right? Folks come into your environment. We want to make sure that they get all the documents that they need. Day one, we want to make sure that they get calendars, drives, things like that, so we can actually perform that onboarding workflow based on this unique smart team. All right. Any questions about that, folks? And Brian, I should have asked you. I kind of answered your question, then I kept going. But was that good on your question?
Yeah, it's like a Google org structure that can be utilized, and then you can create your smart. So your smart teams, does that create a Google group when you do that? In addition to it being a smart, okay. Can you then incorporate existing groups to become a smart team?
Absolutely. So it works both ways. Yeah. So smart teams sync to Google as a group. You can also, because we have clients, we have partners that have thousands of groups already. Maybe they don't want to create any new ones. So you can actually convert existing groups to a smart team. Absolutely. Yep. Nice. Good questions. Appreciate that. Keep them coming. So just quick recap, guys. We basically logged into the console. We've seen some reporting on the home screen. We've actually created some tags, some smart teams. And then from there, we've actually started our onboarding workflow to be able to cover what Cloudm calls joiners. That's kind of the UK terminology that they use, the Cloudm terminology. But any new hires to the organization, any joiners, we can set up a workflow so that they get everything that they need as soon as they join the organization. Flip side of that is your offboarding workflow. Offboarding workflow is really important. We run into situations where folks have suspended accounts that they're just sitting out there, kind of taking up dust, if you so to speak, and they're still burning licenses because they're still showing up in the admin console as active users. So what can we do with that? We can actually create a workflow to offboard those users. Again, by OU or Smart Team. I'm at the default OU level right here. I've got my existing structure. I can go into my Smart Teams. Maybe I decide to build out a separate workflow for contractors versus my managers, right? So any managers that are in the organization, maybe I decide I need to shore up any security, make sure the data is secure. I can do that. So again, onboarding workflow, offboarding workflow, different Smart Teams, managers, and then from there I can actually click in and I can set kind of the config on how that workflow goes. First thing I can do is I can automatically offboard any suspended accounts. That's really important. So account gets suspended in the admin console. We sync with that admin console. We start our process immediately, right? We have this idea of an executor. That's a decision maker. Basically, when these offboarding workflows start, we can ask a domain admin, we can ask an HR rep, we can ask the user's manager, do you want to go through with that workflow? That's what that means. And then it's even one of the steps where we can request approval. We basically send an email, we get that approval, and then we send it down. And then we've got about 25 steps that we can take as a part of that offboarding workflow. Now, I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but basically we can secure your devices. So we can wipe any Google Workspace content from any mobile devices. We can revoke any two-step verification, OAuth tokens, make sure that applications and users can no longer log into those accounts. We can set an auto reply. I've been seeing that a lot lately where organizations will have a person that leaves and then maybe for 2 weeks to a month, they set up an auto out of office message while they inform the world that that person is no longer with the company. And then they have someone else take over those accounts. We can move users, rename users. We can assign an alias. So if we want to take that existing email account, turn it into an alias that can be given to someone else. We can even archive the data. We'll come back to that one. Transfer ownership, documents, sites, groups, calendar events, drive data, any of that. And then, of course, we can use our award-winning migrate technology and even migrate the emails to someone else, to that executor, using that step right there. We can unassign a license. Again, trying to get rid of burning those licenses, suspend the user, and then we can delete out the user. Now, it's kind of nice that you can build these workflows out for any Smart Team, any OU. What tends to happen is you can build out delays, you can delete certain steps, so you can really customize what type of workflow you want for that offboarding. You don't have to use all 25 steps. I got 24, sorry about that. The 25th step is wiping Chrome OS devices. That's something that we added very recently, all right? Nice flexibility there, being able to kind of create the offboarding workflow that you want to create. And then again, we can start that through automation for you almost immediately, all right? Pretty nice. Any questions about that? Any questions about
that? Hey, Dwayne, do we have versatility of doing certain things like when we offboard somebody, we're normally told, hey, Friday at 4 o'clock, this person's leaving. But then a team lead reaches out and goes, hey, they're just cleaning up the rest of the day. They're not going to be probably done until tomorrow morning. Do we have the capability of just saying, hey, delay this for a day or push it back 2 days, and then we get another notification saying, hey, do you want to do it now? And we can perpetually just keep pushing that back until the team lead does say, yes, now it's okay to offboard this person. Because during Thanksgiving, we had to offboard somebody. It took us 3 extra days to get them offboarded because they weren't working during those 3 days. But they still needed to get some timesheets done. They weren't fired, so it wasn't a big issue that they were offboarded immediately, but we needed to make sure that stayed on our radar.
Yeah, Steve. So, I mean, your example was pretty specific, but yeah, we can add delays. So any of the steps that have a clock here, you can actually put a delay into that. And then even with the request approval, using that executor, there's an executor at most of the steps. So it could be a situation where you set up maybe the user manager or you specify someone else. So if the user manager doesn't respond after a certain period of time, the other person that's on that list that's specified can kick in and kick that off. So there is a level of flexibility there to answer that question for you. Yep, absolutely. Where I see it the most, just typically what I'm seeing is this is the step that gets the most delay. Honestly, is the delete user. Folks want to keep that data around for 30 days before they get rid of those accounts. You can set that. You can even set chaser emails, as we call it, basically where 7 days before, in my example, we could send out an email reminder, and then 1 day before the scheduled deletion, we can send another one. A lot of this also can be based on templates. It's using the same variables that we have throughout the system, which is kind of nice. So a lot of flexibility there. Yep. Hopefully that answered that for you, Steve.
Hey, Dwayne,
Nice.
talking about those variables, can you use those to say like, hey, delegate this person's email to their manager without having to specify manager?
You can. So yeah, there's so you can set the user manager already in the as maybe like the overarching executor. That would actually do that for you. But yeah, there is some flexibility with that as well, Chris. Yep, absolutely. Yep. Okay. Cool. All right. So I mentioned the one step, guys, the archiving step. So basically, we're moving the user's data to long-term storage, which can be restored. Now, we do this a little different than some of the other tools out there, even different than Google's built-in systems. This is what we call kind of that third pillar of the platform. This is the protect piece. So you notice that we actually have a dedicated tab to archive. We can basically configure buckets in GCP. You can have multiple buckets configured. You do it right here from manage. Now, this is going to be a bucket in the client's own GCP. It's not a bucket that we provide, but you can configure it directly from manage. You can access that tenant right from manage, set any retention periods, and then you can start that archive process. So any user accounts, any data that you want to send out to long-term storage, you can do that. Where we're finding some of the benefit come in is Google has moved to an archive user license, which basically is similar pricing to a regular user. Not going to get too much into the financials because that's not really my cup of tea. But the idea is we can save some money here, and we're helping on workflows because we can restore directly from manage. So these are accounts data that we've added to an archive bucket. So let's say if I wanted to restore a Beatrice account, I can actually search for that right here in manage. So I'm parsing that data right from here. It's actually pulling that directly from GCS. So I don't have to go out, log into GCP, go into my buckets, pull up those instances. It's done right here from the manage console. And then I have access to her mail data and drive data that I can restore. We restore to active accounts. So any active user, you can assign that to. Basically search, pull up a date range. I'm going to cheat a little bit because she's only got data from May 11th to May 10th to May 11th. I click restore, and I'm going to restore it to myself. I'm going to add it to a target label, and then I can restore that account over. And then it just shows up in your Gmail as an actual label right there. All right. Clean. You get access to the status, so you can see what's happening with those restore accounts. And again, it's done right from manage. So I really want to highlight the workflow on that because that's really a nice boon for our customers. All right.
Can I throw you a curveball here, Dwayne?
Go for it.
That data that's stored in Google Cloud, is it sitting encrypted with our password? Is it sitting in plain text? Is it a JSON file, or how is that data actually stored in the Google Cloud bucket?
That's a good question, Steve. So it is actually inside your bucket. So you as the client, it's in your bucket. As far as the encryption pieces and things like that, I guess that's going to be kind of incumbent on how your GCP is set up. I can probably take that offline to get you a better answer on that. But yeah, it's basically the client's bucket. It's not something that we're creating. We're actually helping the creation, but it's not a bucket that Cloudm supplies.
Okay, perfect. So we can manage your own keys. We can turn that on off as we please. Yep, that's great.
Absolutely. I got a question as well, Dwayne. How does the data get there? Are you using Google Takeout to export and archive the data?
So we're actually using, I know we're actually using our migrate technology to do it. I don't know what the foundational piece is offhand. It could be takeout. I didn't see who that was that asked that question.
It's Colin.
Colin. Okay, I can't see you for some reason. I'm not sure what's going on there.
I'm here.
Yeah, Colin. That's probably something I need to take offline too, just to kind of give a better answer on that. But basically, with our Cloudm migrate, which we're kind of known for, we can actually migrate to archive through that process. But I don't know offhand what the foundational piece is for that. I'd imagine it could be that, but I want to reserve giving you a definite answer.
Dwayne, it's Steve. Sorry. Yeah, we use the same APIs we'd use to say migrate data from Google into 365. We're using the same export APIs in Google.
There you go. Yep. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that, buddy. Cool. All right. So the last piece I wanted to kind of go through, just on this fairly brief demo, is kind of the email signature management. This is a nice one. So we can actually manage signatures for organizations. The idea is you got folks kind of different locations. Everyone kind of puts in their own signature. Things get out of whack. We can manage that for you. So if I was to come in, I'm just going to go to the default OU again. I can edit the signature here. One cool thing that we can provide is templates for you based on what you upload, what you put into the source code. So you can do some programming here, a little bit of HTML, a little bit of CSS. I don't know about you all, but I've not really played around with that since the MySpace days, but that's me. But we can do that right here in the console. And then from there, we can actually provide templates for you. Now, this is kind of nice. So the templates can actually set basically different templates on how you want that to look. And then you can actually pick one and then use that as your template, which is nice. That's provided for you. Same idea, OU and Smart Team. So I mentioned earlier, and I kind of want to drive this point home. Folks live in an OU inside of your existing structure, but they can bounce between multiple smart teams. So again, I can have a new starter that's also a manager. We have the ability to reorder how your smart team precedent is set up. So you can make sure they get all the right information based on the correct smart team. You want to make sure that a new starter that's also a manager gets all their documents, things like that they need, signature. We can reorder that at the user level to make sure that's the case. All right. I hope that wasn't confusing, but that's a question that comes up a lot when I'm kind of demoing this. So I want to make sure I drive that point home. Okay.
When you're applying the signatures, Dwayne, how often do you apply those signatures? I found I have to do it maybe once a day or every so often, just because people just decide to change their signature, which they have the permission to in Google Workspace.
Right.
So I try to apply at least twice a day just to get after those people that are doing silly things. We try to explain to users, don't change it, because we're just going to change it back. But do you guys just find it's just a nightly task that you guys run once a day, or? Yeah,
it's an automated task. It runs every 24 hours by default, Steve. And then, of course, if you need to go beyond that, you can always manually push the update right from the console. Yep. Good question.
As well. Can you access custom attributes in Google as well for these?
Yes. So there's actually variables that you can use as well with the signatures. And I do believe you can actually inject the custom fields. In fact, I know you can. Yeah, into that.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yep. Cool.
Interesting. I had the sort of almost the opposite question from Steve. In that, like, for us, we're actually quite a large organization, but we like to be able to give our users choice over which signatures they use. And one of the things that would be really interesting here is to be able to have like an end user facing component to this, where we've set up a bunch of templates and they can come in and be like, that one for me, or this one for somebody else. Is there an end user facing piece to this, or is it simply admin set and you get what you're given?
Yeah, so there's kind of two parts to your question, Andy. So the first part is, yeah, we actually do sync that signature. There's not really kind of a multiple signature setup that you can have. There's my buddy on the US team here. He changes his signature every day, and then it just syncs back over for him. So it does sync back. Now, something that we are actually looking at, and I think I can mention this because it's a pretty done deal roadmap item, is we're bringing campaign support to the signatures. Don't ask me to quote you on when that's going to be done, but it is supposed to be releasing pretty soon. So that would actually probably help in something like that, Andy, where you can have different marketing campaigns or different signatures that you would be able to apply. That's coming really soon. Now, the second part of your question was, can this be used sort of as a user access? You can. So I actually do have partners and I do have clients that allow their users to be able to use the Manage Console as a directory. And we basically have this concept of role-based access built in. The role-based access is going to affect what you see on this left pane and what users can interact with within a user profile. So you can actually give access to some of those things if you wanted to. I would imagine signatures is probably something you want to keep as an admin's tool or maybe an HR tool, but yeah, you can. So kind of a long answer, but I felt it was necessary to explain all that. So, all right. One more cool thing, just while I'm kind of babbling here. We do have this idea of on-premise integration. So, you know, a lot of times folks may have a HR system that's ahead of their admin console, or they've got some sort of SSO provider like Okta in between. Maybe they're using some sort of on-prem Active Directory. We say on-prem, but it can be anywhere. But the idea is we can actually sync back to Active Directory from Manage. So we can kind of complete the loop, if you will. Certain things can sync back, user creation, password changes, things like that, renames. Those things can actually sync back down. So this is a big one. So if you've got password changes and you need that to sync back to Active Directory, because GCDS is kind of a more or less a one-way tool, we can do that through Manage, which is really nice. Okay. So folks, that's kind of most of the things I wanted to share. Just kind of on the demo. Obviously, there's a lot more that we can do. You know, shared contacts, delegate access, things like that. But there's some integrations in there as well. But that's kind of most of the functionality I wanted to really highlight, especially the automation. Any additional questions for me? Or maybe if we want to open it up to Harry and Steve, that'd be good too.
Dwayne, this looks like a really useful tool. I am just looking at my document for offboarding right now, and it's 3 pages with checkboxes that are basically like checkbox 1, make sure the password's changed. Checkbox 2, make sure you write down any groups they were in, but then remove them from the group so that you have some auditing, like, oh, crap, we didn't mean to offboard this person. We got to put them back. Well, what groups were they in before? We just want to make sure. So this looks like a pretty useful tool. With that, I have a question, because we usually we pay for a single license and we just call it the archive at our domain.com. And we just take the Google Drive data and we make the owner be the archive user so that the files still stay accessible by other people within the organization. Because the second you take somebody's Google Drive offline, somebody starts screaming, it's like, oh, there's a Google form in there, or a client did this or a client did that. When we're archiving this using this cloud bucket, I'm assuming the second you do that, you're taking that offline. Shares are now gone. If we did a restore of a specific file to a new person, are the shares restored at the same time? Like, let's say there's a share with person A, B, and C. Are those shares restored?
They are actually restored. So that's actually a Google thing. They will actually create new shared links. So if you've got like Drive data, yeah, it will, which is really nice. Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of ways to do it, Steve. Like, I didn't get too much into the weeds, but you know, there's a lot of ways of kind of delegating access to someone's information. So you can migrate, you can restore, you can use as part of the workflow and add a new label. So there's, I guess my point is, there's a lot of ways that you can kind of massage that to make it work in your environment. That's what I'm trying to say.
I got a question. Dwayne's Colin again. You mentioned about the privileged access, and with archive, is it possible to give, say, a current line manager access to the archive for somebody that they previously managed, and obviously that account has been deleted?
So if the account's been deleted, you want to give them access to someone that's already been archived? Yes, you can.
Okay. All right. That's very useful.
Yeah.
That's a typical thing for us too, Colin. Manager says, hey, I'm looking for this one file that had to do with client B. Can I look through the Google Drive and just try to find it? A lot of times it's like, no, you can't, because you have access to the whole archive and everybody's data.
Yes.
Right. So what you would do? Go ahead. Sorry, Colin. Yeah.
No, I was just agreeing with Steve. Yeah, that's always the problem, and also for finance, in finding an invoice from 2 years ago and
yeah,
getting access.
Now, one thing we can't do, Colin, and that's actually a good point. And just for full disclosure, we can't actually search through kind of like the actual body of an email, things like that. We can't parse that deep. But like I showed you, we can actually go into date ranges. We can search subjects, labels, things like that. So if the archive is there, you know who it is. Absolutely, you can give someone access to that. Yep.
Okay, so there's no e-discovery component to the backup.
Right. Yeah, it's not going to be like true vault level e-discovery,
Okay.
but it is going to be kind of what I showed you, where you can actually go in and let's pull up another user. I'll pull up Beatrice again.
Because the beauty is that and often accounts get kept and kept around and suspended or active for a while, is that Gmail search is very, very usable, and you can go into the
Right.
account, you can be very specific of what you want to find.
Absolutely. And that's kind of the way we push it too. So once you pull the data, the account, it goes into an active Gmail account, and then you can use all of Gmail's wonderful search to search the body, search any text, anything from that point. So then that actually does become your rediscovery at that point. Yeah.
Right. But you can just do searching for labels or simple search based on recipient or subject. Okay.
Subject. Yep. Does it have an attachment? And then we can also do date range, which is pretty important. So if you know it's somewhere, but in the springtime, you can just pull up. Yeah. Absolutely.
Sorry, Dwayne, just to go on top of what Colin's saying there, or you were saying too, Colin, there. So when we offboard a user, we can actually take their email, and we do have an archive user. We can actually migrate their emails, tags, everything to the archive user. And let's say the user is called Steve. It would be put under a tag called Steve. All their email would be there, and we could use the Gmail functionality because we have unlimited data storage. So we don't care how much we use, to be honest.
Yep.
So that would allow us to use Google's tool to parse their old email.
Absolutely. So what a lot
That's
of my
beautiful
clients are doing, Steve, is like they may actually set up like just a user. It just has to be an active account. It doesn't have to be you. It doesn't have to be Colin. It could just be somebody. And they have that as their restore account, and then you can just restore as you need, and then have access to those archived accounts. So yeah, absolutely, you can do that.
Because I can understand, as other administrators on here, you either get an inbox file that's impossible to go through because your labels, everything don't get copied down to that, or you basically have to try and find it, which is other ways, which is just, it's annoying. So having Google's tool to be able to search it is amazing.
We can also import, like if you had users that you did through our migrate and you migrated them to an archive, we could actually import them directly into Manage, and then you can get access to them too. So it doesn't have to start here. It can be migrated separately, and then we can import them, and then you can use our restore search, which is nice as well. So again, a little bit of flexibility there, guys. Cool.
Any other questions?
The hard questions here, Dwayne. Is this charged on a per user in your domain thing, or is it a single use per month charge?
Steve, I can't answer that. Like this? I'm just a dumb engineer. They don't let me do the pricing, but Harry or Steve, I don't know if you guys can cover that.
No, in fact, let's use this as an opportunity. Thanks, Dwayne, for the demo. If you could unshare your screen, and then we can see everybody in all of their glory on the big screen. The one thing I've noticed having a look at the site is the pricing. There is no pricing page. Sometimes companies have a pricing page and it says call me. You don't even have a pricing page. It says call me. You have an inquiry button. So how is the licensing done?
So the licensing is as a SaaS management platform, as many of the other options in this arena are. If we're just looking for standard user management, then that'll be based on active users in the domain. If we're looking to incorporate the archive piece in there, then the conversation it's case by case, but the number of suspended users on the domain is taken into consideration for that pricing. But it's ultimately yes per user per year.
Okay, and is there a suggested retail price for it if one was going to buy it off the shelf?
For which element?
I guess let's just say the initial element, the Cloudm, the manager part.
The Cloudm Manage RRP will be around $16 per user per year.
Per year? You said.
I was afraid you were just about to say per month.
Yes.
But fear not. We're not going down that route. For everything all included, so the management piece, archive, and in those instances, we'll always give our customers access to our migrate technology as well for any of their housekeeping, should we say, migrations, file systems, etc. Then the wider platform will probably about double that for RRP.
For everything. All right, excellent.
I like that, Andy. Nice.
All right, we've got 15 minutes. If there's any other questions, we'll do round robin and get people to give their thoughts and feedback. Any last minute questions? Steve's exhausted all of his ones.
I was curious actually and I kind of asked about this a little bit already in terms of like, is there an end user focus piece? But so certainly you got a whole bunch of alerts that you were showing of like, this, I don't remember the specifics actually, but it's like this many users have not got a telephone set or so on. And I was curious about that kind of like the end-to-end flow there of like, how do you then alert those users and how do those users then take remediation action? And again, layering on top of that, like, is there a way for that to happen without admin setting things, but users can come in and be like, show me my current status, like show me like all the things that I need to worry about, and can I like tighten up my security? Because that would be really helpful actually.
Yeah, Andy, so there is an element of that. So again, it's going to be what you as the admin, what you decide to give users access to. So you can give them access to those insights. You can give them access to, there's a ton of permissions that you can do. There's a ton of access in there, so you can kind of carve it out how you need to. I'd say I've probably seen where most admins keep that to themselves or certain dedicated staff. They don't let that go as wide open, but I'd say the ability is there if you wanted to. Yeah.
And with that kind of that end user facing piece, like users can access their profile, and based on what access the admin's given, they can start altering certain fields. Admins like to, or particularly HR management, like to tighten down certain fields like job title, phone number, main office phone number. If someone changes their cell or the mobile, then they'll be able to jump in there and state whether this is their primary business mobile or whether it's just their personal mobile. It's not fronted up in any signature, but it's there for HR to communicate with them if necessary.
That's good. I've just thought of one question. Google Drive file management. You had a lot of, we went into the archive and managing users. As an admin, it's always great to be able to manage and do policies on Google Drive files. Do you have any that capacity, capability?
We do, yeah. So Colin, actually, I probably didn't show that, but I think I was kind of focused on the mail. But yeah, there's also a Drive aspect to the archive as well and restore. So that data can be pulled out of there as well. Yeah. Is that what you mean?
No, I meant like, let's say Chris and I are working together and I own a document and I've said it that Chris can only view the document. I go on holiday to deepest, darkest Michigan, where there's no cell phone service. Nobody can get hold of me. Andy needs to have access to my document. Chris is like, well, here's the document, but I'm only the viewer. Let's ask IT to change the permissions on this file. You can do it in GAM. You can do it in some other applications. Can you do it in Cloudm?
We can. Yeah, you can. So you can actually, give access as needed. It'd be ad hoc. I'm trying to think if you could use one of the automated functions to do that, but yeah, you can. Yeah, I'd have to think through that. But,
and is there any automation on sort of any sort of DLP for scanning of documents and warning either the admins or line managers, other people about sharing violations?
We don't have any DLP in the tool as of yet, Colin. Our direction of travel is very much around the users' data, their mail and their drive, and what we can do to really streamline licensing costs, that kind of piece. We do with the migrate tool, we are able to expose some drive information in an environment scan and see, okay, we have X number of external shares, so on and so forth. That's very much a static report as opposed to any real-time DLP like Google do, or any enhanced DLP reporting like some other tools out there.
Right. Okay. All right.
Yeah. I did a call with well, it was Google for Education, and we kind of went down that same road, and it was just the idea basically of, they use Workspace, they do it really well, just lean on that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. 10 minutes left, because I'm sure we all have meetings at the top of the hour as our busy lives are fully booked by our Google calendars. Let's do a round robin of our thoughts and opinions. I'm going to start with Steve Mayne, because you have asked the most interesting amount of questions. We'll let you your thoughts and opinion on hypothetically having Cloudm as a product that you could see being used.
I'm going to tell you right now, I probably have at least 15 people that I should be offboarded off of our systems, and they're not offboarded. Their passwords has changed. Nobody can get into them, but we're paying for these licenses. We have enterprise standard, I believe. So there's about 20 to 25 bucks, depending Canadian dollars or American. But I always feel like there's this pressure on me. It's like I'm just hemorrhaging money. And I know it's a small amount of money in some organizations, but a small to medium business, every little corner you can cut, it helps. So some of this is like, I don't like it when my boss comes to me and goes, hey, so-and-so saw Bob still in group A. Did that person still have access? And then you start having leadership teams that are like, oh my God, Bob still had access to these files. And no, he was just still in the group. He hadn't been removed yet. So I think this tool is a really nice tool to at least start that automation process and kick it off and constantly remind you of the next step. As like, hey, maybe you can't set the out of office yet because you haven't informed clients, but you can delay that step for 2 or 3 days, possibly. So I think this is a great tool, to be completely honest, and I'll be looking at it myself for our team.
Excellent. It's good to hear. I'm going to go across to the left on my screen, which is Chris Tucker.
Yeah, so my familiarity up until this point with Cloudm has been the migration side of things. We did a big migration earlier this year that heavily used Cloudm. And so that was my background. But, there's a lot of things in here that I see that are great, that a lot of other tools do as well. So it's kind of cool to see this space really blowing up and seeing that there's a lot of options coming up. The archiving side I think is more unique than what I've seen from other sides. And I think that's a solid win on that side. But visually, it's very nice. Visually, it's good to look at. I do think there are other tools out there that do a little bit more of the management user side of things that we use a lot. And I don't want to drop names right now because we're talking about Cloudm. But I want to see it grow more and see where it goes. But it definitely looks interesting so far.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chris. I'm going to carry on going on to the left, which is Andy Yates on my screen.
Who has to find the unmute button? Yeah, cool. So I think it's nice. I think for an organization like ours, we've already done most of these things already. We're further along on that journey. And so I was trying to figure out, like, is there a positioning here for other things? The archiving thing I think is interesting, but for us, like, where we've got archiving needs, we're going to go to Vault because that's got sort of a legal backing behind it, and we can actually like pull stuff out and do those things. And the saving side of it is interesting, but I think we're not quite in that space right now. Beyond that, I'm trying to figure out what the positioning is here, where this, because like Chris said, there's like lots of stuff in the market, and trying to figure out like where this fits
And
Okay,
at
so
that point,
solution is
we
something I was
lost
trying
him.
to
Oh, he's
get
back.
ahead of.
We lost you for a second, Andy.
It's okay. Did you? How much did you? I was saying the only thing I was trying to figure out is what's the positioning and how does this relate to other parts of the market? And being crisp about that would be really helpful.
Yeah, great. All right, I'll move over to Jason. Jason, do you have any things to share?
I've been quiet. I'm a former user of Cloudm back when it was Cloud Pages CTS. It's been actually 4 years since I've managed product for a former employer. But I would agree with Chris. I think it's a mostly their solution. I think there's other components I'd be interested in having that other competitors have that make it. I mean, Cloudm is compelling in itself, but I think there's components. And again, I agree on the archive solution. I'd probably be more inclined to use Vault because if I'm going to use something, I want to have the compliance and just a better handle on that piece of it.
Okay, great, thanks. Steve, secondary.
Yeah, I figured, Steve Mayne, Steve secondary, a lot of Steve's today. Had to find a way to identify myself. Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with Cloudm and the platform, migration as well as manage, and we use it. I've used it many times, so I was good to see. I think, like as others have said, competition within the market. So something that I use and look at using in the future. So that's good.
All right, cool. Thank you. And thank you for joining us from a multi-story car park somewhere there. It does look like you're in a multi-story car park. I must admit.
It looks like that. This is actually the location for the Google for Startups in Chicago.
Ah, right. That very industrial build. Excellent. And then we'll give Paul Lees a moment if you have any thoughts to share.
Yeah, no, I like it. I do kind of concur with Andy and Steve around the, if it's a legal requirement, if my data is being kept from legal reasons, I'm going to stick it in Vault. If I move my data out of Google Vault, then it's no longer a legally binding entity because it's been manipulated and moved to something else. And if I'm going to, and so if my data is important to me as an organization, I'm going to keep it in Google Vault and I'm going to pay for that archived license. And then over time, I'll then delete that user. If it's not that important and I'm looking for an archive type of solution, then I'm going to be backing up my data. There are a number of backup solutions on the market. And from a deleted user perspective, those licenses are free. So I get the benefit of backing them up. And then when the users leave, the actual data that is left by those users is retained in the backup system, and I no longer pay for those users. So from an archiving point of view, I get archived for free if I've got a backup solution. And I'd recommend all organizations who look after their data from a Google perspective to have a backup solution. So I don't really see the need for an archiving solution. So it kind of fits in between Vault and backup, and it just kind of, for me, it just misses the mark, unfortunately. But yes, nice try, guys.
Yeah, my feedback, I was impressed with the inclusion of the backup program. I think it is very useful for organizations of a specific size or nature to have that end user admin automation and management component. And I like the ability in one platform to do the archiving and retain that data. And I think it's brilliant that people can have the data in their own Google Cloud bucket, because if they decide to stop using you, they've still got their data and they don't have to fight to try and get their data. I have an existing platform that we use for our management. I have a backup system that has e-discovery, so it's not something that I would have a need for, but it's certainly something that I would recommend to others that were looking to do more management than they currently have the ability to do just in the Google admin panel. So yeah, it's certainly be great to see how the product develops and the whole marketplace continues to expand, because there are some companies that are focusing on purely that DLP drive security component, or not, Drive, OneDrive, or Slack, all of the sort of Box and Dropbox, all of the sharing platforms, but also, for you, the end user, there's a lot more companies doing that sort of SaaS management. And we didn't even get into the Office 365 and the other SaaS stuff that you guys said you were going to do, but it's great to focus on that key thing, which is often how people get in the door, which is needing a way to manage their Google Workspace, which we all love to use. Well, thank you very much for Dwayne for the demo, and Steve and Harry for joining us from Cloudm.
Absolutely.
And thank you. If any last words, Steve or Dwayne?
No, it was just well, thank you to Dwayne for a demo that was very well done. Thank you everyone for the feedback and taking the time out of a Friday to listen to myself and Dwayne go on. I've noted down a lot of the comments, all very valid. But no, just thank you once again. Have a great holiday season and a brilliant weekend.
Excellent.